So, any good moves lately? It's a question I have to ask because it is episode 9 of Survivor 50, and my God, things are happening. And I'm happy to say that even in the midst of the chaos and the insanity, I'm not talking about it alone because today we have the one, the only, the lovable, the amazing, the awesome, the Lauren. How are you doing, Lauren?
Lauen.
I wasn't gonna do it for
Lord
all the
God,
letters.
baby. I'm
uh,
doing good. Thanks for having me.
I am so happy to have you here for two reasons. Not only because you are one of my favorite guests, don't tell the others I said that, but also because we had a shared experience this past week, a shared experience unlike any other, because I traveled from the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio, all the way up to Toronto. Because I wanted to go to Canada and I wanted the experience, and we went to an RHAP event. We were both patrons, and so we had, in my opinion, a fantastic time. I mean, you didn't have to go as far, not to say anything about where you're at, but I mean, you didn't have to come from America. But I mean, still, we made a journey and then we did it, and it was fun, I think.
I think the journey worked out better for you than other people this week, for sure. If you're
Fair
talking
enough.
about going on the journey, but yeah, no, it was a really good time. I've anytime our hap has been in Toronto, I've been there, and so this was not going to be any different. But this time there were a lot more familiar faces for me personally, which was delightful, and we had a really good time. And as I was saying before, we now get to talk about an episode that we sat together in the same room and watched, which that I haven't been able to say that before, so
I
it's just
know.
really cool.
No, it is super cool, and we got an interesting episode on top of it. But I mean, we had, essentially 2 days to basically take it all in. I mean, I was only there for a day and a half, but it's funny because there were three main events that I would say really transpired, at least in my world, which was this patron meetup that happened the night before the episode, where I first saw Lauren in person. What a wonderful time that was. Then we had this Blood in the Clock Tower event, which is very cool as well. And then we had the show, and then I guess the after party after that. But those two things kind of combined in my mind. Um, and so those three main things really made this Toronto trip what it was. I went up and I stayed with Sunder. Shouts out Sunder, frequent guest of the podcast, and his friend, and it was a wonderful time. And you know what? I gotta say, just talking about Toronto, because I'm not used to it. I've never been to Toronto. It's true. Very walkable. I was surprised by that. A lot of cars and things like that, but I mean that's cities. But I was walking around downtown and I was like, I feel like I know what's going on. I feel like I can walk across the city and not necessarily die. Though maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I was just glass half full. But shouts out to Toronto. I had a nice time.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I always love Toronto. I live, it depends on traffic, but I live somewhere between 1.5 and 2 hours away. So I visit frequently. I have friends there. This was a really great excuse for me to spend a little more time than sort of the one day or one evening that I usually spend there. I
Mhm.
spent all in all about 2 days in Toronto, got to visit with some friends, and got to visit with my Survivor loving friends and my Clock Tower loving friends, and yeah, we just had a really good time.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like to speak on it even more, something I'll say that I was really impressed by, someone who has not gone to a live show before. This is my first live show. Is when I first walked into this like patron meetup, I was quite overwhelmed by the amount of people. Like you were the only person who was there immediately that I was like, oh, I know who that person is. Thank goodness. And then everybody else was an unknown quantity. And so I was like, I do not know what to do. But the community is so inviting. And it's really easy to find yourself ingrained in people who all are there for the same thing. I don't know, it's kind of fun, but it's a little different than like a concert is where, a concert's much more individual, but this felt like almost a group exercise where everybody's there for the same thing and everybody's there supporting each other. So I give a lot of credit. I made a lot of new friends on the voyage, which I did not personally expect going in, but that's just how it went, and that it was really really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's a really what's also really cool is that although everybody loves the same things, people have some drastically different Survivor takes, and so
That's true.
sometimes you also find yourself playfully, hopefully, arguing with a stranger in the middle of a loud bar. And about Survivor, in my case that night, it was also, there was some playoff hockey happening where there were some rivalries happening among patrons. And so, yeah, it's just a fun group. It's kind of there's an instant bond, and so it makes it really easy to meet people and talk to people. And it was one of those things where if you were lucky enough to grab a seat at a table early on, which we both were,
Hmm.
there are other people at that table that you don't know, and you're just immediately getting to know people. And
Yeah.
that was just the vibe the whole time. And so, yeah, it was awesome. It's a great group of people, those
Yeah.
RHAP patrons.
Yes, yes. Shouts out to us. Shouts out to us. Round of applause. Round of
That's
applause.
right. We are. I definitely meant the others, but yes, we are a great group of people.
Um, but yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I think we can talk a little more about it. I mean, we kind of went through the patron meetup, but there was more. We had this Blood in the Clock Tower event as well, and I mean, we can kind of get into that as we get into it. But it was very fun watching the episode with this giant group of people. We're in this wonderful theater. I forget what I keep
It's
forgetting the name.
the Winter Garden Theater. It's on the 6th floor of the Elgin and Winter Garden Theaters. I believe it is the only still operational stacked theater possibly in the world, meaning that there are two full theaters, one on top of the other. You might actually know a bit about this because if I understand correctly, you missed the entire podcast because you were chatting it up with the ushers.
Yes,
So
I
you might
was.
have actually learned a little bit about
I don't
about
know
it.
how. Did I tell you that? I don't
Yeah.
remember. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I did not. Yeah.
That's an I hope that's okay that that has been told
I
to
don't.
your listeners.
I was about
But
to mention it. Yeah.
yeah, okay. This man has the gift of gab, everybody,
Yes.
if you haven't noticed, and he made friends at the theater.
This is true. So yeah, we did watch a Survivor episode and it was great. And I told myself that hey, I am actually not necessarily going to watch the podcast because um I had an ulterior motive for being here. I'll be honest. I had an ulterior motive. Maybe I'm a bad person. Not really. But I wanted to get this hat, which is very much in the background because I should have grabbed it beforehand. But I have a Toronto Blue Jays hat in the very top right corner of my personal half of the screen that got signed by a bunch of Survivor contestants. And some of them I got it signed during this Blood in the Clock Tower event because we got lucky enough to play with a few castaways, which I thought was very cool. But a lot of them were either directly after this episode or at this after party at this bar that I also don't remember the name of.
The
But
bar was the craft beer house or something.
I
I'll
will
look it
take
up.
your word
We got to
for
give
it.
them all credit.
Yes, yes. It was a wonderful time. I certainly had a wonderful time there. Um, but regardless, so I had an ulterior motive to get this hat signed by people. So I was kind of waiting outside because my brother's been to one of these live shows, and he said that the contestants kind of peter out once they're done being on the podcast. So I had an ulterior motive. But yes, I actually spent most of the time talking to one of the workers there. She was very lovely. We had a great conversation. Um, but it's actually so funny. I'll mention this. I wasn't going to mention this, but I will. So, this Blue Jays hat that once again I point to in my half of the thing, has a story to it. It's a story all about a Sharpie. You see, I had this plan. I had this plan to get this hat signed for a while. I was like, okay, I got to do this. I'm gonna do this because my brother, who I mentioned went to a live show, got me a
Your brother
signed
is
shirt.
Jeff Probst.
That is true.
That's
But
your
even
brother.
even next to him, my brother
Got
Jeff
it.
Probst,
Okay.
he got me this shirt that's a little tough to tell, but it's signed by a bunch of contestants who were at the New Orleans live show from a few years ago. And I said, you know what? I want to do that too, but instead of giving it to someone else, I will be selfish and also have it. But I'll have the experience of getting it signed myself, which I think will be very cool. And so I wanted to do that. I wanted to do that with a hat instead of a shirt. The only problem was I realized looking up Toronto Blue Jays signed hats that almost all of them were done in white or silver Sharpies. And I realized this as I was in the airport to leave. And I said, okay, well, two things. I need to get a Toronto Blue Jays hat, which should not be hard. And two, I need to get a silver Sharpie, which might be hard. So before the Blood in the Clock Tower meetup, so about an hour to kill beforehand. Me and Sunder, shouts out Sunder, go on a mission to get myself a hat and a Sharpie. And so we go to the Easton Mall, and it should be so easy. Should be easy. This is the biggest mall in Toronto. 3 levels, multiple food courts. I guess I don't know how normal that is, but multiple food courts was weird to me. But regardless, we find the hat pretty easy. I pay way too much money for it, but I'm like, I have this idea in mind. I have to do it. The silver Sharpie was the trick. We went through like every store, and eventually we went to like Canada General or something. I don't know, some giant store with literally everything in it, and we had to go to the stationery section, and I had to buy myself a 3-pack of gold, bronze, and silver Sharpies. But you know what? It worked. So that's my thrilling story about Sharpies, and I hope you enjoyed because it actually I'm underselling it a little bit how much of a hassle it was to get it, but it was worth it because now I have a one of a kind item. So yeah.
Incredible. I'll do some quick Canadian fact checks of both of us.
Please.
So it was the craft beer market was the after party.
Okay.
The mall that you went to was the Eaton Center.
Eaton.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Eaton Center.
I don't know why I
and
said
then
Easton Mall. I don't know
I
what
think
that
you said
is.
Easton Mall. Yeah, and I
thought
let it go because the story was compelling and I
Thank
didn't
you.
want to,
Thank you.
And then I don't know what this giant Canada General store is. My first guess is perhaps Canadian Tire.
Yes, that's it.
Okay,
That is
amazing.
it. Yes. Yes.
Incredible. We
Yes.
did it.
Look, I went to Canada for a day and a half. The idiosyncrasies of the country did not necessarily make it a lasting long impact in my mind.
Names are just names. I misnamed the pub. It's all about the vibe, and you captured the vibe.
I will say, speaking of Canadian differences and things we don't have in America, it's very funny because when I first got into Toronto, I got in through Union Station, and then I walked to my Airbnb, and I was like, okay, I got like 10 minutes to kill before I have to check in. I'm just gonna go to a grocery store and like look around. So I have on my phone a bunch of pictures of just like weird, not I guess to me, weird chip flavors that we don't have in America, and like things that you don't see on grocery store shelves here. Like, they got grape leaves. We don't have grape leaves in America. Like, we don't have those like in a jar. Like, that was interesting to me. I was like, that's cool. That's cool.
I
And
didn't
so,
know we had grape leaves either. So
well,
this is news to
maybe
me.
it's a very
Maybe it's a Toronto thing.
maybe it's a very special grocery store. I don't
Yeah.
know. But regardless, I assumed that it was normal because I was like, well, why would a grocery store be weird about the products it sells? I mean, I assumed that Canadians just love grape leaves, and I was like, hey, I mean, why would I have known that?
Yeah.
But yes,
Maybe it's
I had
just
a lot of fun.
the maple leaves or leaves
True.
have sour grapes right now because they didn't make the
Mm,
playoffs, and so
good.
currently the stores in Toronto are selling grape leaves.
Very true. I bet that's the reason.
Yeah, that must be it. I'll keep
Um,
an eye out for grape leaves next time I go grocery shopping, though. The chip flavors I fully understand, and that is a must. I hope you tried some.
oh, I certainly did. It's actually really well, it's not really interesting, but it's interesting enough, so I'll mention it. Um, how a lot of the flavors are packaged differently, but they taste the same as stuff here. Just in terms of sheer like names and stuff like that. Um, so I tried one that was like a sour cream and bacon, and it tasted like a chip we have in the US kind of. And it's interesting because a few months ago I was in London and they had the same chip flavors, which I was a little surprised by it. I would have thought it would have been different, but there were a lot of similarities between like the UK and Canada in terms of chip flavors that for whatever reason have not translated to America, which in my opinion, I would think would be the opposite because like America's known for liking chips. That's like one of the things. It's like that's an accurate stereotype. So
Yeah.
I
It's
don't
got to
know.
be a Commonwealth thing. It must have been a royal decree from the king that
Yes,
we must have ketchup chips. I don't
yes, to
know.
have ketchup chips and gosh, I don't even know, all dressed
All
chips
dressed.
and
Yeah.
fromage. Did I pronounce that right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cheese in French. So yeah, some
Okay.
sort
Well,
of,
I'm
yeah.
not French. I'm American.
Yeah.
I can only claim to be American. But
Oh, you nailed it.
but yes, so that is all to say. That soliloquy is all to say. I had a very good time in Toronto. So many things. Maybe once we start talking about the episode, more will come to my mind, spring to my mind about things to say about my experience in Toronto. But it was a very good time. But hey, let's talk a little about this episode because there is an episode of Survivor to talk about. Um, but before I can do that, I have to ask Lauren. It's Survivor 50. It's in the hands of the fans. You are a fan. I am a fan. So I have to ask, what are we thinking about the season so far, just in general?
I think as soon as you have even half of the people that they cast on this season, you're gonna have a decent season just
Hmm.
because and A, they are characters, that's why they're back, but B, they really came to play.
Yeah.
And I think I mean I will never complain about this season just because moments and conversations, small little pointless moments and big game deciding, things that decide the direction of the game, alliances and decisions between two people, like pairs of people or groups of people that you just never thought you'd see play together, like this polyamorous relationship between Suri, Ozzy, and Rizzo. Like, you come on, like it's just automatically great. um as a Clock Tower player and fan, seeing Emily Flippin play Survivor the way I've seen her play Clock Tower is
Yes.
just so delightful. And seeing Christian be frustrated with her in the same way on Survivor as he is in Clock Tower, like it's just immediately good. And so I have loved all of that. I don't mind ever when Survivor tries new things. My big thing, and I've heard this echoed before, I'm certainly not the first to say this, I just like the players understanding the twist as well, and I like it to be something that's not simply luck and drawing a team or drawing a rock. Like, I like them to have some form of agency,
Yeah.
which is why the double duos twist, although they didn't exactly understand what they were pairing up for, they then had a day to try to play the game, understanding what was going to happen at Tribal Council. So I much prefer that to the Blood Moon, which was just luck based. So are certain things that I enjoy more than others. There are people that I think were gone too soon, but pretty much no matter who went home, I would feel that way. And I kind of knew that going in. So yeah, I've been enjoying it. And there are some people that I'm definitely rooting for more than others. I think if we get into this long like slog of honor and integrity and hypocrisy, it's gonna be rough. But at the same time, it's fun having some people touting that and then immediately showing their hypocrisy, and that kind of being telegraphed, like that kind of being what the editors want us to get out of it. Then I'm fine, that because there are always going to be players like that. So yeah, overall, great group of people. A couple that I would have loved to have seen on there, but I've long since gotten over that, and I've been enjoying it. I have high hopes for the rest of the season.
Yes. I also have high hopes. Look, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of like this cast is so good that it would be really hard to churn out a bad season or even a mediocre season. I feel like no matter what, we're gonna get an interesting, good season. I will say this, in my personal opinion. This isn't even to talk about the last episode, but just in terms of what the season has provided so far, I feel like it has been a really crazy roller coaster of peaks and valleys. Um,
Hmm.
I think it's been more so peaks than valleys, but sometimes those valleys can be rough, such as the blood moon. Um, all that being said, you know what? I'm still kind of trying to figure out how I feel about the season because I feel like this is the most peak valley season of Survivor that I can think of, just in terms of like it's every episode feels like a different level of good to bad. Like usually when you talk about the best seasons, it's like, oh man, every episode in Heroes versus Villains is great, or every episode in Cambodia brings something. Or when you talk about the worst, it's like, all right, All Star starts off good and then falls off a cliff, or Game Changers. I guess is also kind of all over the place, but it leans a little more valley than it does peak, at least in my personal opinion. This season is just a total is really weird in that sense. Like I don't even know if there's been any terrible episodes. Well, no, I think they probably happened, but I think it's just been the twists have been the only thing bringing this season really down. Like, but also if you're gonna cast 24 people, I don't know what you do about that. Like, I think
Right.
that's just the corner Survivor backed itself into, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think even with the twist, even if it's something that it's like, I didn't love that. Like, I do completely understand that sometimes whether or not we enjoy a twist also depends on who it affects.
Yeah.
And so that is absolutely a factor too. And I also, again, I don't mind them trying new things. I understand that it's 26 days and 24 players. Like, I understand all of that. I think the only times when I'm just kind of like, yeah, they really could have done better there is if you immediately feel like with Blood Moon, for example.
Yeah.
And again, not my idea. Someone else said this first, but it would have been far more riveting if they just sent 17 people to tribal council, had them vote somebody out, and then said, okay, now do it again. And then, okay, now do it again. Like that's a blood moon,
Yeah.
and like that's a red wedding. This was like they knew the people who were going home knew they were doomed before they got to tribal. Like the blood moon happened when they drew their tribes. And so I just think if that's what you're going to do, find the most compelling way to do it. And I suppose they were just hoping that the tribe selection would have been a little more interesting, a little more sort of confusing for people. I think that was why, because even the pairs, if production didn't have control over that, like production, that was compelling TV because of the people who ended up being paired up. As soon as we saw it, we knew who was going to be talked about to go
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
But at least there were a couple options, and so yeah, I for season 50, I don't mind them trying new things, and then what sticks, we might see again, and that's great too, and always evolving. I think the celebrity, and we'll talk a little bit about that from this episode, but the involvement of celebrities. If I had to rank the celebrities based on their impact, I wouldn't even put Jimmy Fallon at the bottom, despite the outcome of this
I
episode.
agree. I agree.
Um, I will say, a good friend of mine who actually was cat sat for me while I was in Toronto. We were talking about Survivor, and she just said, oh my gosh, like I've gotten really into this show, and then my favorite musical artist, Zach Brown, randomly showed
Oh
up, and
my
like that's the
goodness.
best episode of Survivor I've ever seen. And I was like, oh my god, we found you, the person this episode was for. We found you. And then I was like, don't look up reviews of that episode online because you will be sad. But there's something for everyone, Joey. It's great.
That's the beautiful thing about Survivor. Yeah, the twists have manifested themselves in different ways, whether they be celebrities or just like weird BS sometimes. Like the Blood Moon is the one that annoys me the most of all of them for sure. And even beyond your idea, which I do like, even if it wasn't your original idea,
Mhm.
is above the 17 people going off one by one. My thought was just like, why even merge them? Why not just send them all to tribal council and have them
Right.
win individual immunity? Like, you know, I
Yeah.
guess I was about to say makes sense for like chaos purposes, but the chaos has manifested itself in a very, very ugly way where a bunch of people who are likable and you want to see stay in the game just get booted for a true luck of the draw. Like, say what you will about this Jimmy Fallon puzzle vote for yourself twist, which we will certainly get into, but at least Christian had a little bit of agency at the end of the day.
Mhm.
He could have solved that puzzle. I know people say that he couldn't. I believe that he could, or somebody could have, even if not him. But we'll all get into that, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But before we do, I do want to actually get into this episode proper. But we can't really talk about this episode without talking about the last episode because the start of it is Rick Devens talking to the camera about how successful his fake, not actually idle play was. And so I ask you, Lauren, first of all, what did you think of this? And second of all, was it a good play?
Well, I mean, I think it's it's so tricky to know because if that tribal was going to go Rick Devens' way without him making that play, then obviously in hindsight it probably wasn't a good play because it put a big target on his back and certainly then and what's interesting is Christian's fear of the target sort of ping-ponging over to him because he's in an alliance with Rick Devens is and then his reaction to that is sort of what in part led to that happening, which
That
was
is
interesting. It
true.
was sort of a
Yeah,
self-fulfilling prophecy. And so again, the play by Devens, like the way Christian responded to it, both with um how he responded at tribal council, like he was already going to be lying to people who thought they were aligned with him, whether or not Devens made that play. So that was already there. But I feel like the urgency with which he tried to come up with another plan was very much influenced by Devens having made that big move. And so had he not, maybe things would have been a little more chill and who knows what would have happened. But from Devens's perspective, if he wasn't 100% sure, and for two reasons. The reasons being life in the game and also screen time, which I have a feeling is an important thing to Rick Devens.
yeah,
If he was not 100% sure that vote was going his way meaning not for him, then he had to do it. And in terms of how he did it, I thought it was perfect. It was delightful. The fact that it drove Joe nuts and Joe didn't like how he did it is, I think, just evidence that it was great,
yeah.
quite frankly. But so he had to he absolutely had to try something. I think it was a smart way to make it seem like he still had the idol at the end of it, which that could come back to haunt him because now there's all this talk of splitting votes, and the majority being on him to force him to play it. And would that have happened had he not claimed to have had an idol? Who's to say? But overall, I thought it was fun. It would have been. I mean, we would have never seen them planting it if there wasn't a payoff.
Mhm.
Um, so I knew there was going to be, but what a shame it would have been if we never saw any of that transpire because that's just fun. It's season 50.
Yeah.
I the editing certainly made it look like it was necessary for his game. But the fact that he has now told Emily that the idol is fake and what her storyline has been this season, which is just telling everyone's secrets to everybody else. I kind of have a feeling I know where that's going to go. And that's also fun. And once again, that's probably good for her game. Like every time she's revealed people's secrets, it so far hasn't really hurt her game.
Not at all.
And so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But yeah, I think I mean, we can get into it. Certain people were saying, well, no, I was always going to be voting for Coach and Christie, like Joe. And that
Mhm.
wasn't true. And that was very funny. That was very funny to watch because Joe now doesn't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to honor and integrity because it's like he's after promising he'd never write Coach's name down. He's telling Devens that he always intended to vote Coach out. So if that's true, no honor and integrity there. or he's lying to Devons now. No honor and integrity there, which I don't care. It's Survivor. You should lie in Survivor, but Joe has put himself in a position where he can't because that, it's representing his whole being. And I feel like we're starting to see his being unravel in front of us.
Yes.
Like you could actually see just you're seeing this man disintegrate, and that's been fun to watch.
It is true. I mean, essentially, Joe has done back-to-back seasons, as you see a screenshot of him recreating
Yes.
Devons's idol mishaps. This guy's essentially played back-to-back seasons, and the first time he played, he got absolutely like brain blasted by Kyle and Camilla. He just got absolutely walloped at Final Tribal Council. I don't know if he expected to win, but I'm sure he thought he had a solid chance, and that just immediately went out the window. Um, so I mean, I guess these past few episodes, I guess I wouldn't say his level of paranoia has risen. His just level of 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 jumpiness has risen a
Hmm.
lot, I would say, which is very interesting to see. I think this happens a lot with people who play essentially back to back times. It happened to Russell, certainly, but it also happened to Spencer. And then I think it happened to some others as well. But yeah, regardless, I think the idol play itself, I mean, it was clearly the right move. And I think even though it's very possible that word about it being a fake idol spreads, I think if anyone's going to know how to play that, I think it's going to be Rick Devens, who is a master of fake idols. I mean, I don't know if he would have gone home in the last episode, but I think he helped his game out by not by continuing to say, "Hey, this is a real idol this episode." And I think with how scared people have been about playing around idols so far this season, I think it could keep helping him. I could see a world where Emily goes home in front of Rick Devens
Hmm.
this next episode. Now, of course, that would probably mean that Emily doesn't reveal that it's a fake idol. But I mean, theoretically, I could see that happening just because people are like, well, Rick Devens knows he's really on the bottom now that Christian's gone. He's going to want to play this idol. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Or I can see Emily revealing it's a fake idol, and then that making her the bigger target, because Rick would at that point be willing to vote for her if
Yeah.
she outs that information. We know, I think at this point, Tiffany and Suri would vote for Emily over Rick, if Rick's idol is no longer a concern. So that might be the time where she does it potentially to save herself, and it
Yeah.
actually sinks her. So it'll be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But going into this episode, we have that is the last major thing that happened. Of course, um, Coach and Chrissy did go home. In an interesting twist. I mean, we've been talking about twists. I may as
Mhm.
well ask you, what were your thoughts on the twist? I know you kind of spoke on it a little more, that you enjoyed it more than the others. But would you say it was a good twist or a great twist? Would you want to see it again?
I really liked it. I wanna see it again. I don't mind if they tweak it a little bit. I do wanna say, um, regardless of whether the twist is interesting or not, Jeff Probst needs to stop blaming us fans for these specific twists. I don't want credit, I don't want blame. It wasn't me. But anyways, yeah, I think, the idea of like the tied destiny, or like whatever you want to call it, it's not a brand new concept. It's something that has popped up in like online social strategy games for a long time, games that Rizzo was very involved in the community, like playing. So I can only
Yeah.
imagine the flashbacks that he was having in that moment. I've seen it be that the people, in order for their votes to count, they must vote together. And I think that could be really interesting for a future iteration of it, just to try that out and see how it goes, because otherwise their votes are just canceled out altogether.
Yeah.
That could be really bad too. I don't know, but I just think if they want to try new things, that would be interesting to see. Because what I love about a twist that is introduced prior to it being a bombshell at tribal council, is that then people need to learn to strategize around it. And seeing some of these people who are really brilliant strategists have to strategize around something new,
Yeah.
and kind of invent new Survivor strategy because of it is really
Cool.
great,
Yeah.
because like that's why some of them are here, and we want to see them do that. So yeah, I think that was really interesting. It'll never be, I suppose, with 51, because I believe that was the first episode that cast did not see, unless it was shown to them before they actually went out on the island, but they had definitely already flown out. So it like it could maybe happen for 51 with people not knowing who they're picking. And so again, any like online gamers on 51 might be able to be like, I think I might know where this is going, and so that would be interesting. But um, but after that, people will have a general idea of what this probably is, which is why it's nice to maybe switch it up a little bit, because it's like, sure, pick somebody who's in a different alliance from you, and that will hopefully keep you both safe. But now, if there's a twist that you also have to vote together for your votes to count, it's a little more interesting. So I would love to see that one again. I think that's kind of, and you know what? I don't mind the idea of the boomerang idol either,
Yeah.
but just because I'd love to see it work, I would love
Sure.
something to come of that. Because even with this, no matter how those idols, well, one's already gone, but like no matter how Ozzy and Rizzo's idols get played, the boomerang will not happen because Genevieve
Yeah.
is gone. So I'd love to
Yeah.
see that. So I guess I kind of want to see that again. We don't need any more blood moons.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I think the pairs twist, happy to see that again, happy to see it play out. And and honestly, the one in the urn with some tweaking, I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool
Yeah.
idea. I think if they didn't know that Christian had to vote for himself, it may have been a fine idea. That was just brutal. I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but no, it has some potential, and I worry that because a beloved player and the star of the show up till this point, quite frankly, because it cost him his life in the game, that perhaps they'll be a little shy to introduce that again. But um, as far as celebrity introduced twists go, I think it's actually one of the more interesting ones.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, and I honestly think that all of them, except the Blood Moon, which isn't even a celebrity twist,
Mhm.
have been a fine. It's just I think the way that they have been presented has kind of been shooting Survivor itself in the foot. I think that the Tide Destinies, or whatever we're calling it, was the one exception where it felt like, okay, Coach and Chrissy have made mistakes to this point that have put them in the position where they're going to go home here. When I feel like we were not given that for Genevieve or Colby or
Mhm.
Camilla with the Blood Moon. We weren't really given that with Christian this episode, then maybe a little. And I think that kind of leads to a lot of resentment around how the twist goes. But I think also, like, there's a world where it could have been just as bad for the Tide Destinies, and we would be saying, "Oh my god." Um, I don't know who it would be, but some pair went home that I didn't want to. Um, and like maybe Rizzo and Emily went home. Why did
Yeah, that
they
would have been
go
awful.
home? You
Yeah.
know. Uh, and I think part of it is definitely kind of like Monday morning, like quarterbacking it all, where it's just like, okay, the person I didn't want to go home went home, and so that's a bad twist. But I mean, like, the Boomerang Idols were interesting. I don't think I think there were maybe too many of them. I think having one would have been fine, but I think it was interesting for sure. If it comes back, I wonder if we'll have to call it the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol.
Right.
Um, the BEBI, the Bebby.
The Bebby.
But
It depends on if she ever speaks about it. If she
that's
speaks
what I'm
about it
saying.
publicly, then it's the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol. If she never says a word, then at like this season, then I think it can just be the Boomerang
I
Idol
think
from
that's
here on
so
out.
funny. I wonder, here's my headcanon about how this talk went down, is like Billie Eilish met Jeff Probst at some point, and Jeff Probst is like, "So, you like Survivor?" And she was like, "Yeah, no, I watched them as a kid. Yeah, I watched some seasons." And then Jeff Probst is like, "Well, we gotta put you in the game." And she was like, okay. And then
Yeah.
she picked from their list of 3 advantages or
Yeah.
whatever, and then forgot about
Yeah.
it.
No, I think it's definitely something like that. And I mean, she name dropped Survivor in one of her songs. I think that's how she originally got tied to Survivor. And so I
Okay.
suspect they reached out because of that, and through her people, yeah, it was circle A, B, or C. She voted just like we the fans did.
She's just
And
like me.
she's just like us. And I think that's how that came to be. Former Survivor player Lauren Ashley Beck recently interviewed her for a
Cool.
movie,
Very
and
cool.
I watched every clip expecting at some point for Lauren, who maybe is trying to distance herself from Survivor a little bit, I don't know, but for her to ask her about this. And the fact that she never did, like, I adore Lauren, but that is bad journalism. I'm saying
It
that right
is.
now.
Yeah. I it almost makes me wonder, maybe Billie Eilish was like, "And just don't ask me about
Yeah, it
Survivor.
was on like the no ask
I
list. Yeah.
don't wanna talk about it. I have nothing good to say about my boomerang idol."
Yeah,
Whatever.
exactly. She's a Genevieve stan, so she's just so upset
I
that
think she would be. Yeah, that
yeah,
sounds right to
yeah.
me.
That's probably what
Um
that is. Yeah.
But that's very funny to me, that whole thing, especially on the flip side when you have Jimmy Fallon who got Christian on his show to basically
Yeah.
apologize. Now, it was a very late night TV apology where it's like, "Ah, ba, 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 wow, ba,
Yeah.
ba, 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 ba," Jimmy Fallon. But still,
But
that's
that was
very different.
yeah, that was my impression of tribal council in this recent episode. Even though Christian admittedly was blindsided to a certain degree, it's not like he thought it was a certainty that he'd be going
Sure.
home. I don't think he thought he was. I still think he was playing to get on Jimmy Fallon's show. That his entire performance at Tribal was to get on Jimmy Fallon's show. And he did it. Like and like no shade, as the kids say. I that made sense. But that was he is an intelligent man. He knew that was a possibility, and he played it up. And I mean, I'm not saying that his feelings about it were inauthentic. I would feel the same way he did. It was funny when Jeff was like, I can't tell if you're serious or not, because that was actually a really relatable moment for me, because the amount of times where I am like sort of faux upset about like a twist on a TV show or in a
Sure.
game or whatever, and kind of am playing that up,
Yeah, flood
and
the clock
like
tower
the
all the
rage
time.
is, yeah, clock tower, the rage is in my eyes, but like I'm doing it tongue in cheek, but people can't tell. And I think that's sort of where he was at. But he was also like what the hell, guys? Like, so I think it was all real and all fake at the same time, and it was all to get on Jimmy Fallon's show, 100%. And
I
he did it.
I agree with that. So good job, Christian, for
Yes,
manifesting your boot into something greater. We're all very proud of you.
and he gets to
Um,
be the first person who voted himself out of the game. Like, come
yeah,
on, that's
yeah.
awesome. What
I
a
I will
stat.
s- I will say, like, I don't I as I mentioned before, I really don't feel the same way about this twist that I did about the blood moon. Like,
Mhm.
I think the writing was on the wall for Christian. Maybe not this episode, but over the next few episodes, it looked like. And obviously, anything can change. But I don't think he helped his cause when he went to Suri and was like,
No,
"Hey, we got to get out Ozzy." Um, and I think, I mean,
you
this
mean
is
you mean Voldemort?
yes, who shall not be named, which I never. Why are we calling him that?
I don't know.
I I don't know. I feel like Ozzy and Voldemort are like the opposite that
Yeah,
guys can be vibes wise, like just completely
absolutely.
different. But whatever. Also, very different levels of hair going on there as well.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but regardless, Christian goes to Suri and says, "Hey, we got to get at Ozzy. He has an idol. He's in the middle." Um, I guess here's my question, and I don't know if this is a question any of us can answer, but we can try, which is, how do people keep falling for it? How do people keep thinking that Suri only cares about them? It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's
No,
crazy.
it's amazing. It's I yeah, I she I the charisma she clearly has, the comfort she gives people. Like, I feel like there's even more to it than that we don't see, and I kind of wish we could see those conversations where she seems to just lull people into comfort believing that they're her number one. Like there's something she must be like, maybe she was, speaking negatively of Ozzy at some point, like as part of her ruse. Like I
Yeah,
don't know,
yeah.
but I think Christian had sort of spoken to it in some of his exit press that it's like at the start of the game, you're like hyper aware of these pre-existing relationships and sort of what you're witnessing. Or maybe it was somebody else speaking to this. And then like, as you get into the game, you develop these relationships with people and you kind of forget about, these other ones because you think, you have something real there. And I think at the end of the day, when you like, when I say you, I mean Suri, like when somebody like Suri has to sort of decide, well, what is my real alliance? It's so often that first one, like I'm not always, maybe it's the second one because but it's an early one. It's not the
Yeah.
brand new merge one. Very rarely is that your ride or die. And I think that actually, I'm kind of going off track a little bit, but that's
Go
something
ahead.
that I think is always very interesting too. And I think when we talk about people being loyal and honorable and everything else, that's, I think, why people think sometimes when they're playing a game that they've played a really loyal game. Meanwhile, everybody on the jury it feels like they betrayed them. It's because in that person's mind, they really did have a number one. And sure, they told other people who their number one was, but they had their real number one the whole time. And I will say
Yeah.
sometimes they did, and sometimes they even convinced themselves by the end that they did, and it's whoever is still sitting next to them. But they believe it. They believe, well, this was my real number one. Yeah, I lied to the rest of you, but it was because I had to protect and hide my real ride or die
Sure.
alliance.
Sure.
But like what that looks like to everybody else is just betrayal.
Yeah.
And so it's just very funny when it looks like hypocrisy. But we also as viewers are shown in an edit for the people that is the story. Like we have seen Suri and Ozzy being tied together from the very beginning. And there may be other relationships like that too, that it's not as clear because and I have no idea where this will end up going, but that story doesn't end up being as important. But yeah, I do think Ozzy's the one person there remaining who I think could potentially lay down his game for Suri. I know some people speculate Rizzo would, as such super fan, would probably do the same thing. Rizzo is a super fan who went out at fire and his life's goal is to win Survivor. I don't
Yeah.
think he would. I
Yeah.
personally don't believe that. But I think that is something else to look at. It's like, and Christian should know this. That's why, and this was a huge mistake from him, because forget about the fact that they were tied together from the very beginning, and that was literally the discussion of the first vote of the game was how tight Ozzy and Suri were. So the idea that he forgot that is wild. But
Yeah.
also, Christian's all about looking at what everybody's story is and what motivates them. And Suri's story is that she just simply cannot get to the very end because everyone knows she can beat them. And so, of course, she's going to want to align herself with the people who might actually get her there. And I think Christian knew that much and was trying to present himself as one of those people. But you have to look at the rest of the cast and be like, who else is one of those people? And Ozzy is absolutely the closest thing to that. No question.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think it's all very valid, very good points. I think the thing that I would say about Suri and really where she stands in the game is that she's playing a completely different game than everybody else. And I don't just mean in the sense of like, her social game's on point. It's she has a different goal and she has a different set of circumstances it takes there than anybody else in the game. You know, she is somebody who will probably only make the end if she's taken there or
Mhm.
competes against someone very bad in fire making. But it'll almost certainly not be because she wins immunity. It'll be because she went there because somebody else let her get there.
I have a feeling
Hmm.
that Suri, for multiple reasons that I don't know if we're allowed to talk about on this podcast. I don't know if we talk about other Survivor franchises or not on this podcast.
Go
Okay.
ahead. Yeah.
Um, I have a feeling Suri is very prepared to make fire. I have a feeling Suri practiced fire going into this, because it's how it's why she lost Australian Survivor versus the World, and so
Mhm.
and unlike other people on this season, she had more than 2 weeks after filming that to actually learn how to make fire.
Yeah.
And it's also, she knows her whole thing is that people just are unwilling to bring her to the end. And so knowing that, and knowing, winning immunity, that's a little harder to practice. Now, there may not be fire because fans voted for this, but I actually think Sari is one of the people that change that they had in mind when that change was implemented.
Yeah.
So
Probably.
I actually think she has practiced. If I were her, like if this is the goal and she knows where she usually goes out, um, like I think she is a fire making machine. And so I would love to see Suri in a Final Four fire making. I think Suri versus Rizzo in a Final Four fire making would actually be really funny.
That is
Um,
true. Yeah.
yeah.
Imagine a 3-hour fire making challenge for the
No, they'll
season 50 title.
yeah, like I don't think Rizzo and I mean, if Rizzo goes out in fire, um that's the equivalent of Amanda Kimmel having like an
Sure.
even worse final tribal the second time around than the first, where people at home are like, you knew this was what you needed to improve, why didn't you do it? But like, to go straight from that, not see the reception into this next game, and be that much more physically and emotionally exhausted because you've played Survivor for like 2 straight seasons.
Mhm.
It actually all kind of makes sense. And with Rizzo and Fire, same thing. Like, those 2 weeks, sure, we can all say, well, I would spend them practicing fire, but you probably are spending them, seeing your family and figuring out your employment situation before you go off to Survivor again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be a very interesting end game, especially seeing Rizzo and Suri, the relationship that they're forming.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think you know what, the thing with Sari as well is like I trust that she will make it through. Like the only time I was like, oh man, Sari is in danger. And really, the only time the show told us she was in danger was episode 1. Ever since then, it's just been smooth sailing, and I feel like she's been the most like secure player in the game. So I've the fact that she can still do this and people haven't changed and people haven't wisened up beyond one
Mhm.
season of heroes versus villains says it all. I think that it is truly just a magic and a mist.
Yeah. And I think the mist is real, absolutely. And I don't want to discredit her in any way, shape, or form. But I do think there is an element of people know they can beat her at immunity whenever.
Sure.
And she is a bit of a shield for them because, in their minds, if that's the person who absolutely has to go at 5, then it's not going to be me who goes at 5. And then, assuming there's fire, their fate is in their own hands one way or another. So I do worry that they're just keeping her along because everybody has that same idea. The downside is the people who end up going out before her also had that idea. And again, to Cerie's credit, she knows that. She
Yeah.
understands that. She's probably placed that in some of their minds herself. That's what she's so good at. But I do worry that at like 6 or 5, that there may come a time where suddenly the thing that it seems like nobody's talking about, they are all zeroed in on it because it's been in the back of their minds. So I do worry for her for that reason.
Yeah, and I think that's all more than valid. And we've seen so many seasons of Survivor that we've seen that happen over and over.
Mhm.
So there's no real reason to think something will change, unfortunately. But you know what is changing is the nature of Survivor challenges, because we didn't just have the one Jimmy Fallon twist this episode, but we actually had two.
Mhm.
We had a twist during the challenge in which Jeff Probst decided he would get up off that couch and compete in the challenge himself to hold up his pregame body weight, or a percentage of it, I guess. And yeah, I guess Jeff Probst did this. It feels like such a footnote on the episode, but this is something that happened. So, Lauren, what do we think about this?
So we saw it in the promo leading up to
Hmm.
it. I
Yes.
thought I was gonna be so annoyed by this, and I
Hmm.
ended up loving it.
Yeah.
And props to Jeff for being vulnerable. Like he knew he was sort of the butt of the joke, and he let that happen. And so credit where credit is due. He understood, his producer hat was on. He sort of understood what the show needed, and it ended up being really, really funny. And the length of that segment, I think, A, did not feel too long, like it
No.
was enjoyable, but B, I love that they dragged it out so that when he asked how much time had passed and they could tell him 6 minutes, that was so funny because it had been like an entire segment up till that point. Um, so yeah, no, I thought that was so fun. I don't need to see it every time. I
No.
probably don't need to see it ever again,
No.
but it was perfect for season 50. And yes, I do believe it was Jimmy Fallon who had suggested he do that. So it makes sense that it was in this episode. And yeah, no, it was I was delighted by it. I loved watching that in a theater full of like lifelong Survivor fans as well.
Yeah.
I think that worked out really well. So that was great times. Yeah.
It was really fun. There were so many things that I love about it. I love the fact that Jeff did it, and it was really a different side of Jeff Froese who really haven't ever seen before, where it's he is struggling. We never
Mhm.
see that. He's always the cool, composed, maybe way too energetic sometimes, but like seemingly has a grasp on everything Jeff Probst for 50 seasons. And then now he's like voice cracking. He's like, "Who designed this?
Yeah.
What the heck? This is
When
crazy."
someone dropped out, he didn't know who it was.
I was about to, yeah,
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 it was so good. He couldn't host and do that, and he shouldn't be able to. That's supposed to
yeah,
be hard.
yeah.
So yeah, and the
Um,
montage of him just talking smack from over the
yes,
years was
yes.
so good.
It was so, oh my goodness. And they had some deep cuts in there too, stuff I didn't
Yes,
think about. Um,
yeah.
but no, that was really fun. Gosh, it was so good. See, that's the thing about Survivor 50 is that at points it hasn't felt enough like an actual celebration of Survivor. It's felt
Hmm.
like an excuse to try new things out with Survivor, which is okay. I mean, they kind of did that on Winners at War, but there's a balance between those two things. And here it reminded me of like, hey, this is a season meant to celebrate the show. This is the 50th season. And yeah, you're gonna do some crazy stuff, but crazy stuff that that makes sense for the context of the show. Sure. Have Jeff do a challenge. Have him struggle. See what it's like. It's very fun.
And
Yeah.
I think everybody thought that he picked the one that he figured he'd do well in or something too. So to see him struggle as much as he did was very entertaining.
I mean, I bet he thought he would do well.
Yeah, that's true.
I
That's
bet
true.
he
Well,
was like,
and
yeah, this is easy. What?
yeah, well, and I mean, just thinking about like, I imagine it was and what was the percentage of body weight that they did?
That
Was
that
it?
I don't that I don't remember.
Yeah, but whatever, but for everybody else, it was pre-game, and they obviously are all depleted. For him, it was probably current, and he's not depleted, and so already that's easier in theory. And so that, like, he had an advantage there, and we definitely didn't see it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
very funny.
I think it's true, but I do like his like face of anguish in this picture, for
Yeah, he
instance,
was
where
trying
it's
to smile.
yeah, he was trying to smile through the pain quite literally. But yeah, no, it was really fun, and I would like to think it will give Jeff a fresh perspective on the show, having done it, especially this challenge. I bet you'll see this challenge a million times from now on because Jeff will be like, I did that.
I
And let
did
me
that.
tell you, it's not easy up there.
Yeah. Every time somebody beats his record, that will be acknowledged.
But, yeah, no, I thought it was just so fun. I love the commentary from the, peanut gallery.
Yes.
I love that Jeff was like, "I need somebody else to start narrating," and then Rizzo immediately dropped.
Yeah.
That was very funny to me, and then Devins drops right after. But even despite all that, the person who had the best lines was Ozzy, who was competing the entire time.
Yeah.
So there you go. Very fun, very fun.
Very fun.
Um Also, hey, there's a challenge associated with this Jeff Probstness, and Joe manages to win this challenge rather easily. I noticed something that he was doing where he was like alternating hands. I noticed that he did that in 48 as
Mhm.
well when he lost to David. But the fact that he did it for an hour and 48, and then did it for it seemed like he could go forever in this one is pretty wild to me. I guess you have to be strong as a firefighter, but I mean, you know.
And I think the type of strength too, I was thinking like this is a challenge made for a firefighter. Like I think I don't know exactly everything firefighters do, but like controlling the movement of a cable, and just like sort of the grip strength and the tricep strength that's needed with that, along with everything else. I feel like that is like if they are like lowering or raising somebody, like things like that, like that's something that he would need to do. So
Yeah.
I think that makes total sense. And then I also think that that fire under you of coming in second the last time you did this, and just that knowledge that you so recently, like if he didn't have to go as long this time and he knew how long he could go before,
Mhm.
that like in terms of the mental game is a huge advantage.
For
And
sure.
it's a disadvantage to the other people who know how long he can go and are already hurting. So this was his to lose, and he didn't. He won it.
There you go. So, I mean, he wins immunity again. I look, the thing I'll say about Joe is I think regardless of how you feel about him this season, I feel as if if not Sari is like the most safe person on this cast because I feel like there is no world in which he wins. And he's a theoretically loyal ally. If nothing else, he's a very he's a contestant who is worth managing the ego of because
Mhm.
if he's loyal to you, he'll be loyal to the end, but also he's not schemy enough for you to be worried to work with. Like at most he'll be paranoid, but I mean at this stage in the game, I'd rather take paranoia versus somebody who can beat me in the end. So,
Yeah, and I think at this point they have figured out how to manage him. And I mean, the irony being that his biggest fear going into this game is being played the same way he was in the last one.
yeah.
And he is, but this time it's literally by every single person who's left. Like they
Yes.
all understand that he's a great goat to bring to the end and what they need to do to not set him off and set his sights on them. And so they're all just sort of playing around that. Now, I mean, if he suddenly had insight into that, and gained a little bit of self-awareness, situational awareness, or like demonstrated that, and at the end was just like, I knew every single plan because you all were afraid to not tell me the plans, and that, and I was fine with that. Or like if he suddenly had his heel turn,
Mhm.
I don't know if at that point he could win because people had already formed opinions, but it would be far more compelling. But he's entirely in the dark. He's playing a different game than everyone else. The fact that he was mad, so mad that he was vibrating, that Rick Devens had the audacity to do something to secure his own place in the game for at least one more day. Like the fact that he was vibrating, that Rick Devens didn't just allow himself and Aubrey to potentially be voted out. It's wild to me,
Yeah.
and that would probably more than anything be what would set me off as a player. Like I would really struggle to not call that hypocrisy out. And
Yeah.
so kudos to everybody who's left there. I think especially Devon's, because they have history, and that's something that I think they had their big blow up when Devon's did sort of call that out in the past. They understand it's something we can use to just bury this guy in a final tribal. And so I'll just hold on to it now, make fun of him in confessional, and just let him play this game he thinks he's playing. So yeah.
And it is funny you mentioned the actually calling him out on it, because that did kind of happen at the start of this episode when Joe is like, well, why? I was gonna vote for Coach and Chrissy the whole time. What are you talking about? And Devin's like, well, I was told you were writing my name down. He was like,
yeah. And I think, like, to say that is one thing, but to not, like, it sounds like Devon's didn't keep on it when Joe was like, no. He just was like, okay, sure. And then Devon's, the frustration about that and the humor he saw in it, we got in confessional, but he now understands sort of how to have those conversations for sure.
Hey, one more thing about this challenge, this is a very eventful challenge, is that Jimmy Fallon was not done. Jimmy Fallon loved the idea of season 50, episode 9 so much. There's also a journey involved. And before we get to even what the journey was, I just want to talk about the way that we decided that Christian was going to go on the journey, which is the Joe mandated rock, paper, scissors. Which, all things considered, way better than what it would have been, which is just somebody has to go. You have to decide, in my opinion. But I don't know.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
He's the king of fairness. It made sense that right on the spot, he was like, we're going to do this right.
It's honorable.
Yeah, it's honorable.
Integrity. Yeah.
I think anybody at that point, and here's the problem with the journeys, is that the smarter move is probably to not go on the journey and not stick your neck out. And that's not good TV. So the journeys, the losing a journey needs to be less painful so that people are willing to go on them, or else they're going to have a journey problem on Survivor. But no, this time enough people were interested. The rock, paper, scissors played itself out, and Christian won. And yeah, I'm sure he wishes he didn't.
Look, I think in general, the problem with journeys, or the thing I'll say about journeys, is this. I think people are right to be scared of journeys at the start of the game, because you're almost certainly going to lose your vote, and then you're just a sitting duck. But I do think, like, during a merge, like, it's worth taking that risk, because I mean, we saw in 48 that there was a beware advantage or not a beware advantage, sorry, a knowledge is power on the line. Like, there are truly game-changing things that you can get during these merge journeys, because they only come up so often. It just so happened this one's upside wasn't super high, and the downside was really high. So, I mean, that's the nature of the beast. But, like, I saw Emily say something along the lines of, like, you never want to do journeys. And I was like, I get it. It is safer to not do journeys, but if you're looking for the edge, then that's what's going to happen,
Yeah, and I guess my take on it isn't that you should never do journeys. It's that more and more survivors are going to have the take that you should never do journeys if they keep doing them like this. And so then the people who do go on them aren't going to be the most interesting people that you want to see on them. It's going to be the people who, who don't really think of it from a strategic standpoint. And therefore, if they get a really interesting advantage, probably won't use it in as compelling of a way as someone who has more of a mind for the game. And I think after this, it's really a nail in the coffin, because obviously Christian, this advantage, like, I don't think it would have done anything for Christian in this game. But in general, he's someone that I would want to see do this. And now I think people like him will really take pause. But I do, and he has said that his main reason for wanting to go was because he wanted to make sure an advantage didn't end up in somebody else's hands. And I think that was
Sure.
maybe a misread by him in terms of his own positioning and the risk he was facing already before he even agreed to do that. So I do think it was a mistake for him to stick his neck out in that moment, but I don't think he had yet realized what a mistake it was to tell Suri that they should go for Ozzy.
Yeah, I just think that speaks once again to the innate fear people have of advantages this
Mhm.
season. Of like, I guess Christian was trying to target Ozzy, but I mean, there hasn't been anybody who's targeted Ozzy before then since because of his idol. I haven't heard Rizzo's name once since before Chrissy went home, or I guess a few episodes before Chrissy went home. Um, and of course, no one's even talking. I mean, I guess people don't know, but I mean, if they knew about Cerie's steal vote, they especially wouldn't
Mhm.
target her. So, I mean, it's interesting. The only person who they went after kind of was Aubrey, but that was mostly because she said she would play her idol and then didn't. And
Right.
then Devon's, I feel like, is was being targeted because he just grabbed his idol and people didn't know about it. Like the
Right.
lack of predictability is something when it comes to idols that is far more important, in my opinion, on whether or not you stay in the game than not. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
No,
It's
it's been
interesting.
very interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned Aubrey. She got one confessional that wasn't really related to anything that happened. I mean, I guess because she was a vote for Christian, but it was the type of confessional that it's like we would not be getting this if she's not a player deep in this game. And so her season has been very interesting thus far. And I'm, it's unfortunate because I'd much rather, like, in terms of the players that I like, I'd much rather her play with the other ones. But I thought it was a good move to be sort of one of the first to seemingly to go to Jonathan and
Yeah.
try to secure something. And similarly, Tiffany and Joe have this pact now as well. And so Aubrey and Tiffany, for all this talk of, I don't really quite understand who the middle is, but for all this talk of that, I feel like the middle is changing and the sides are changing,
Yeah.
and different people are sort of like it feels like rather than sort of kind of volleying for a place in the majority, people are volleying for a place in the middle, and that kind of keeps moving, and because like that's where Rizzo wants to be, but it's where perceptually I feel like um Tiffany and Aubrey actually are, but
Yeah.
whereas Tiffany and Aubrey were at the bottom, but then once the middle is identified, the middle becomes the other side, and then those people at the bottom become the middle, and then after the Coach and Chrissy thing, things kind of flipped as to who is it, like, so it's very interesting. And it just, this talk of taking out the middle has become such a narrative, that it's like people are simultaneously trying to present other people as the middle and position themselves in the actual middle. And I think it's just, I don't know if it's a CBS show or not, but it's a really great time for that reboot of Malcolm in the Middle. I think if it was a CBS show,
If
they
only
should really
Malcolm
try
were
to
on
capitalize on
50.
that.
Jeez.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, but I think it's a good point. I really think that just in general, in terms of like, I feel like this is kind of voting block adjacent. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily alliance adjacent, especially now that Coach and Chrissy are gone. That it is a lot more fair to look at somebody like Suri and be like, I'll assume that she'll want to vote with my conglomerate rather than I assume that I'm her number one, because I feel like that's kind of where the numbers lay right now. It's like
Hmm.
there are almost more people, the sides are determined by people who won't work with each other rather than people who will.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
you
so
know,
true.
Devon's won't work with Joe necessarily. Jonathan won't work with, I don't know. I don't imagine he'd
Women.
work with. Yeah, Emily was who I was
Yeah.
gonna say, but
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I'm kidding. I mean, obviously he's willing to work with Aubrey. So, well,
yeah.
and I think that's the other thing. And I'm not trying to, I'm not here to rag on Jonathan.
Please, I
But
don't mind.
but what I love about season 50 is just the knowledge of baggage people have from past seasons and things
Yes.
that they've done in past seasons. And like Aubrey lost her first season, I think in part because she was unwilling to satisfy the egos of some misogynistic men.
Yes.
And so that scene we got in this episode of her trying to get an in with someone who I'm not saying is a misogynistic man, but Lindsay from
Looks
his
the part.
season will definitely say that.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting that Aubrey's like, this is who I'm going to try to work with here. And what a story if those two are sitting at the end
I know.
that she'll have. Like, because I really want these men, like, if they make it all the way, and just, I think they're gonna make it deep at this point. Like, I even if they're sort of at the bottom here now, like, if they make it all the way, like, for somebody to sit there and be like, everything, I took everything that was used against me before, and I was aware of it this time, and that's how I insulated myself, and I let you think you were running the show and you weren't. Like, that would be really compelling also. So I just think that's, I mean, initially when Aubrey was announced for this cast, I think she was sort of, my understanding, kind of the replacement for Amanda Kimmel, who was supposed to be on it. And there was no one I wanted to see on 50 more than Amanda Kimmel. And so I was very sad. I never took that out on Aubrey, but I was like, she's played a lot. Like, I feel like we've seen Aubrey, but I love when people bookend things, and just knowing how her first game ended. I just think it's really interesting who she's trying to align herself with right now. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
I do also think, just even looking at the people left in the game, at least in terms of the women, the people who have played, this is at least their third time playing, are much better at managing, from what I can tell, the egos of these, some may say misogynistic men than others. I mean, Cirie, Aubrey, and honestly, definitely Stephanie are pros at it. Like, Stephanie has been working with the most close to misogynistic men, if not outright misogynistic men, of all this season. And hey, she's still here. While Emily and Tiffany have both had their struggles, and more so than the other three, honestly, have been close to going home. Aubrey was close to going home, but she also had an idol, so I think that's a little different. Meanwhile, I mean, all the women who probably rightfully were like, I don't want to work with someone like Jonathan, unfortunately are out of the game now. And I don't know if that's a microcosm of the world, as Survivor often is, but I do think that is interesting theoretically. Or maybe what it really shows is just how much more playing a third time or a fourth time can really affect the way that you manage the game and know how to manage the game and manage egos. Which I think either way is really interesting, depending on how you perceive that. I don't really have an answer to that, but I think it's interesting regardless.
Oh, for sure. I think it kind of, you learn to not sweat the small stuff, and to better identify what is considered the small stuff.
Yeah.
I think that was why it was funny that Cirie was so peeved by Emily's concern about the rice. But that was only in confessional. She showed no sign of that in interacting with Emily. I don't think Emily was wrong about that, by the way. That looked like a whole lot of rice.
It did look like a lot of rice.
But at the same time, like, I guess, if you're talking about conserving it, then she's not wrong. But at the same time, if you've been living without it, like, I think just enjoy a ton of rice. But it was very funny at Tribal then when Emily was talking about like how wonderful and delicious the rice was, and just the cut to Cirie's eye roll, especially after we got such an epic eye roll from Emily, like the previous Tribal Council, or 2 Tribal Councils prior. So that was great.
I believe Emily said something along the lines of, the rice was so good, it really felt like it gave me my personality back.
Right, yes.
Cirie was just like, my God.
yeah. It was a double whammy at both the being happy about the rice and this idea of her personality maybe being something that isn't Cirie's cup of tea. But shout out to Emily. I love her personality, and I love that she's on this season.
For sure. I thought the rice moment was really fun as well. I mean, Cirie, shouts out to the Survivor editors. For once, they have realized that hey, Sari is somebody who should constantly be giving confessionals. Like
Hmm.
don't sweat the Sari of it all. Like this is not Game Changers. We're actually showing her talking again. Like thank goodness for that. Um, it did look like a lot of rice, but hey, I would like to
What
think
do
I
we know?
wouldn't be like Emily, and I wouldn't
Yeah, exactly.
question
It just
Sari's choices.
it's and I guess that goes back to not sweating the small stuff. That is the small stuff in the long run. Like the rice was extra. You would have survived without it because there was a chance you weren't even going to get it.
Yeah,
So there's just no point in making waves there. And so yeah, but
yeah.
that goes to the experience. The players who have played a few times definitely had nothing to say about the rice.
All right. Well, hey, let's talk about this actual journey because Christian gets the opportunity of a lifetime to get a one of a kind message from Jimmy Fallon, um, and gets taken to this pontoon in the middle of the Fijian Sea. And gets told, "Hey, put together this puzzle before it flings off into the ocean, or else you will have to open a mysterious letter back at camp. But hey, if things turn out successful, then you get to cast an extra vote for somebody in secret at tribal council." And here's the question I want to ask. Even forgetting about the disadvantage of Christian having to write his own name down, what did you think about the advantage here? Did you think it was interesting? Did you think it was worth what seemed like a pretty difficult puzzle? Like what do we think about that?
I think so. It's not like he has to cast his vote in advance. It's an extra vote for somebody.
Hmm.
I think that's really interesting. I don't think. I mean, he probably would have voted Ozzy, and then
Yeah,
he probably would have gotten back to camp and realized that he almost needed to turn on Emily. Like, because I think if he wasn't voting for himself and he was more in the conversations and his vote was up for grabs, I think he would have figured out what was going on.
for
And
sure.
so I think it would have just been a random throwaway. But I think it would have been interesting then. But that's the thing is it could have, even if he survived that tribal and like Emily went home, now there's this random vote for Ozzy, which could cause more problems than good if people figure out where that came from.
Yeah,
So I actually think it really sort of sets you up like in a situation where um if he was in a position where he knew he was going home and he went on that journey because like this was it, I think what a brilliant way to get somebody else's name in the urn and then play your shot in the dark, and if you happen to be safe, they don't have to revote for your ally.
yeah,
There's a vote for Ozzy. Like that would be brilliant, and that's kind of why I feel like who chooses to go to the challenge, like it just makes more sense when it's people who are ready to start the Hail Mary process already. But so that would have been really good. But for where he was in the game, I don't think it was a super powerful advantage, and I think it had a lot of drawbacks.
for sure.
Um, and certainly wasn't worth the disadvantage that came along with it. But I think it's definitely interesting, this
Yeah,
idea of like, but at the same time, an extra vote is actually more powerful because you can
yeah,
use it at tribal once you know what's going on. So and I mean, and an extra vote and steal a vote, like steal a vote is probably more powerful, and we don't see those as being overly powerful. So it really, I think the one scenario I gave is where that would just be like chef's kiss. Otherwise, I don't think it's a particularly powerful advantage. But remembering where we're at in the game and how many players are still there and everything, I'm not sure I would have wanted to see something that was like drastically more powerful than that in
yeah.
many ways.
I think it's fine. I think the positive, the boon that you can get for this was okay. I think it would have been interesting had it worked out. Just saying, hey, because Christian would break down what the strategy is of like, hey, what is the best way to use it? Should I use it on Ozzy? Should I throw it away? He would have broken it down. But as it stands, I mean, the world would have been a much kinder place if he had just, lost, even if he lost his vote. I think it would have been
Hmm.
better. Not
Yeah.
like I would have been happy about that. I'm sick of people losing their votes, but at least I could be like, hey, that's the nature of the beast. Or really, I'm fine with him having to vote for himself too, as long as he didn't have to make
He
it
didn't have
public.
to
But
announce it. Yeah,
and he did.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, One more thing about this puzzle before we even talk about that downside is, of course, Christian does not manage to complete the puzzle successfully. It flies off the pontoon into the South Pacific Ocean, I think. Um, and the thing that I'm amazed by is somehow the puzzle stays together. Somehow it
Yeah,
doesn't break apart. I don't what are those puzzle pieces made of? That's crazy. And
truly.
most importantly, did they have to fish it out of the ocean or is it somehow biodegradable? I don't think that's
Right.
likely.
Who's to say?
But
Well, and also, did they stay together or did they reshoot that moment later, right? Who knows?
oh,
But
true, true.
but speaking to the puzzle, because you mentioned this before that like we know Christian is good at puzzles. There's an element to a puzzle like this, the sort of dexterity and almost strength needed to put those pieces in a secure way that
Yeah,
takes time, that may not be his strong suit. And so I imagine if that puzzle existed and it was just like a small jigsaw puzzle like we normally do,
yeah,
he probably would have been able to do it just fine. But keeping pieces in, and sometimes it's not necessarily this piece goes here, but you can't place it yet because there's nothing to secure it. That it means it takes longer, and just finding the pieces and securing them in when your hands are probably shaking. That's very different from just having the spatial skills to do a puzzle.
for sure.
And so it didn't feel like he had a whole lot of time there. And I feel like if he can't do that, sure, there's somebody who can, but I feel like a lot wouldn't. It would be very interesting to see the dream team
I
doing
was
this
just
and how
about to
many
say
people were
that.
able to
Yeah,
accomplish it. Yeah.
yeah. And also I think the added pressure of, that it's gonna fly off once you're done, and you can
Yeah.
constantly hear the rope spinning
Absolutely.
it's only every minute that one of the anchors or whatever you call it goes off. So I mean, like, I don't think it was impossible. I think it was hard, but I didn't think it was impossible. I also think when
Mhm.
Rachel did it in 47, it was also hard but not impossible
But
because I
not
mean she did
impossible.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, but she had something where, again, like the winds on the pontoon, things like that wouldn't affect the puzzle she was doing to the same
yeah,
extent
that's
as this one.
fair enough.
So there are just a
Yeah,
lot of factors. That's tough.
yeah.
You really
It's
need to
tough.
bring your A game, and you get one chance. Like that's a lot.
Yeah. But regardless, so Christian does not complete the puzzle. He knows that he has to go back to camp and read the note out loud. And so he does that, and he learns that he is the first person in survivor history to have to write his own name down at tribal council. We've already talked about this a fair amount, but I mean, oh man,
I mean,
crazy.
at least you'll always be remembered for that. So that's something.
It is technically a silver lining, like a silver Sharpie. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just think okay, here's actually the question I'll ask because this is what's I think really the crux of whether or not we should all, get our pitchforks and torches right now and storm uh the survivor capital. I don't know. Would Christian have gone home regardless, or was this really what did it? I don't know.
I so I have heard him say that he thinks it could have flipped on Emily. I actually think he would have gone home regardless. And the reason why is that had he not had to go back and announce to everyone that he was forced to vote for himself, Emily would not have stuck her neck out for him in the way she did
Yeah,
and gone to Suri and also proposed they vote for Ozzy. So then it's only, in all likelihood, so then it's only Christian who has done that. And people were already gunning for Christian. So this idea that it might have actually flipped on to Emily, I don't think that's true because her actions, similar to Christian's actions being because of Devin's big move, at the last tribal, Emily's actions were to try to protect her ally Christian.
yeah,
When she saw that it just made sense for them to just vote him out. But I feel like things were already pointing that way. And if Emily had caught wind that things were pointing that way, she probably would have learned they were pointing that way because Christian dared to, well, I guess he didn't say Ozzy's name, but specifically to say who shall not be named. And so she definitely wouldn't then have done the same thing.
You would think.
So yeah, so I do think maybe Devon's like maybe there was more talk, like maybe they would have split it between Devon's and Christian, but put actually more votes on Devon's. I kind of think, and we didn't see anything of it, but I have a theory that the reason they put more votes on Christian than on Devon's, A, it's easier because he's already voting for himself, but
Sure.
B, I suspect they thought that if Devon's is going to play that idol based on the conversations, he's going to play it on Christian. And so his adversaries wanted to successfully nullify Devon's idol and then send Devon's home.
Yeah.
And so so again, I think Devon's fake idol is part of the reason that happened, but I think that all would have happened regardless. Had Christian not gone to Surrey about Ozzy, who's to say who would have gotten votes alongside Devon's, but by the time he went to exile, I think it was him going home.
I think also the thing that is important to remember is like Christian just went on a journey. Like if he comes back and he doesn't have to read a letter, then people who are against him anyways, which seems to at least be Jonathan and Sari and I guess Ozzy, are going to be like, well, he could have something. We got to do something about that.
Right.
And it's a lot different, I found, when it comes to targeting people when people could have something versus if you know that they have something. Yeah. And I think they would have been scared by that and more willing to go after that than Devon's, who, to all their knowledge, except Emily, does have a real idol, or at least probably has a real idol. So I think it makes sense, and I think that's to say I think Christian's goose was a little cooked regardless. But yeah.
To that point, I guess the one scenario where if they were like, we need to split this vote to flush Devon's idol, and now we're worried Christian might have something, we don't know what, I could see them splitting between Devon's and Emily because of that fear. And so that world I can see, like if he went on this journey and they didn't know what happened there. But that was never going to happen. No. It was more that if he didn't go on the journey at all, what would happen. And I think what would have happened was he would have gone home. So I guess then not bad that he went on the journey. It just really sped up that. It just really was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. And there's a chance, I guess, if things have worked out and he could cast the extra vote, could have somehow worked out. I don't know what the numbers really were, but maybe the extra vote could have mattered, but I don't think so.
How many people are there right now, or were there that night voting?
I believe it was 10. Let me make sure, because here I can go through. We have a picture that I just showed of all the people together. Yes, I believe it's 10 because we have Ozzy, Jonathan, Tiffany, Sari, Devon, Stephanie, Aubrey, Emily, and then I think it's Rizzo over there and Christian down there. I think.
So looking at this, I think in a world where Devon's idol was real, that might have been enough votes to get Ozzy out. Like if Devon's, Emily, Christian, and Christian's extra vote were 4 on Ozzy, and then the rest tried to split the vote, and the person with the majority did in fact play an idol, then those 4 would probably be enough to send Ozzy home. But there was no idol, no idol that could be used. So I don't think it would have been enough. Yeah.
No, probably not. But hey, a useful thought exercise regardless,
for sure.
I guess.
Absolutely.
So hey, all that happens, and really, I think the rest of this episode is kind of, the Christian. I mean, we get this.
Actually, sorry, I'm thinking about that again. If they tried to split it, like. It would have tied. Yeah, sorry. Okay, continue.
But we get this little push of like, hey, it could be Emily. Emily's trying to get out. Somebody who we believe that she was working closely with. We can't trust her. She'll do whatever. I didn't really buy into it. I kind of thought it was smoke from the beginning. I agree with what Rizzo was saying, which is basically, you know, Christian already has a vote against him. It's never going to be an easier time to take him out, which is basically echoing what he said about coaching Chrissy last episode,
Yep.
which is, hey, if you have the easy shot, take it. Don't wait.
Yeah,
Why
absolutely.
shoot yourself in the foot? But you know, that's how it goes. So we get to tribal council, and Christian just, in his own way, kind of blows up about the whole thing. He says, this is terrible, this is awful. He's joking, but he's not. And I love Jeff's reaction because he basically no sells it. Because I mean, obviously, he's not going to confirm that Jimmy Fallon had a say in the
Right.
game. Um, so Christian's explaining what happened. Like, I lost my vote. I have to vote for myself. And Jeff's just like, okay.
Hmm.
It's very good. Very good. And then we get to it. And then Christian goes up, writes his own name down, and says some very mean things to Jimmy Fallon.
Hmm.
And throughout the course of this episode, I haven't really talked about our experience in Toronto, but I will say this about the Jimmy Fallon twist. As we do know, Christian ends up going home, and Brandon Donlin, who was kind of facilitating the commercial breaks for this, and kind of doing some fun activities like charades with Omer and Franny, and throwing shirts very poorly into the crowd, that sort of thing.
I
Um,
think he did great with the shirt throwing. I believe he hit more targets than his shirt throwing opponent, Caleb. So shout out to
that
Brandon
is true.
Donlin.
That is true. Shouts out to Brandon Donlin. Very nice guy. Um, and we were, sitting there. Christian gets voted out, and Brandon Donlin comes out with his phone. And he's like, hey, we should all send a very nice message to Christian, saying thank you, we love you, that sort of thing. And some genius from the crowd exclaims, Jimmy Fallon.
F
Fuck
Jimmy
Jimmy
Fallon.
Fallon,
Yeah.
even. Um, and Brandon's like, well, why don't we do that instead? And then so it's such a communal experience to have.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many people were there, like maybe a few hundred, something like
This,
that.
the theater seats just under 1,000, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people off scream, with the passion of 1,000 fiery red suns. Fuck Jimmy Fallon. That
Yeah,
was beautiful. That was great.
it was.
Even if we're being so real, Jimmy Fallon had like
Yeah.
nothing to do with this.
Well, and that's again, honestly, in the long run, and I think Christian knows this, like how wonderful that you get to blame Jimmy Fallon for
Oh
your
yeah.
your boot episode, even though really it's not his fault, and he knows that. But like we can joke about this, we can put the blame on this other party. It's kind of fun. I somebody reached out to me and was like, "Are you watching Survivor this season? So many people seem so mad about this last episode." And I was just like, I know a lot of people are really disappointed that Christian went home, but I do think a lot of that vitriol is very much tongue in cheek, like people having fun blaming Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think they're as angry as you might think they are if you're just seeing posts on social media. And now maybe there are other people out there who are like, no, I'm, to quote Liz, I'm pissed. Like
But
this
but
is
they're
awful.
but
But
those are the same
yeah.
people that are always mad. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly. And
Yeah.
I personally watching that episode, by the time it got to tribal council, there were no good options for people who were potentially going home. It was
No.
awful no matter what.
Yeah.
So I had already kind of grieved. And I didn't even have them ranked like in my mind, like
Sure.
especially with Christian and Emily, like either would be devastating, and I was not hoping for it to be Emily over Christian like at all. So like it was just already and I think it actually would have been more sad if it was Emily, because then we couldn't even blame Jimmy Fallon,
That's true. Yeah.
So I personally had sort of already grieved before the votes were cast. And that made it easier also, in a weird way.
I think here's something I was just thinking about, and I want to get your perspective on this. I think that there is a silver lining to all these twists that have screwed people over, like Genevieve and Camilla, and maybe not Colby, but Christian and whoever else, maybe even arguably Coach and Chrissy if you want to go that route, which I personally wouldn't, but you could, which
Mhm.
is we have a whole new generation of people who for years will say that these players were robbed and push for them to get back on the show. And as we saw with Survivor 50, that works. Like it's like a bank a vote or something. You know, it's banking you to come back again because
Mhm.
Christian's gonna come back again. He was probably already gonna come back again, but this cements it. The fact that, hey, last time you played, Jimmy Fallon gotcha. Or, you know, Genevieve was a victim of the infamous blood moon, and now she wants to re recapture her glory or whatever. Like I think that's a silver lining is like if these players want to come back, I think they'll be able to, especially because I think they've all handled it with relative grace. That I think it's like, yeah, even Christian was, you know, quote unquote mad about it, but it was tongue in cheek, you know, like he I don't believe for a second that he was actually like, man, Jimmy Fallon, I hate that person
Everything
personally.
I did.
You know.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
this ruined by Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't think so at all. And
Yeah.
and that's not the impression I got in any of his exit press or anything either.
No.
So
It's just kind of how Survivor works, and especially these returnee seasons work. I think ever since like Game Changers, if you have a returnee season, there's gonna be a little bit of wacky stuff going on, like whether it's Edge of Extinction and Fire Tokens or Blood Moon and Duos Twist and this and that and all and the other. That's kind of how it goes, unfortunately. But yeah. So rip to Christian. He's not
yeah,
dead, but he is dead in this
yeah,
game.
yeah.
Um,
We get to see him on the jury. I feel like he's gonna. I look forward to hearing from him in the finale on the jury. I'm sure, especially hearing from him preseason and what he's looking for and this idea of controlling the narrative and things like that. Like I feel
mhm.
like um, he's going to try it. If there's somebody he wants to win, he might even help to shape that for them and give them a little bit of a layup, you know,
Yeah.
and I think his questions will be good in that way. And so I'm glad he's going to be there in some capacity at least.
One last thing I want to ask you about this episode is what happens after the votes are cast against Christian, which is Jonathan gets up and gives Christian back his
I'm
shot in the
glad you're
dark.
asking. I have opinions. Sorry, continue.
I also have opinions. But I want to know your opinions first because Jonathan hands Christian back the shot in the dark that he gave him earlier in the episode. Why? Tell me why.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I saw enough people right off the hop be like, wow, that was really nice of Jonathan to do that. Like, I guess, I don't know, giving him a souvenir or like, his own honor and integrity because it's questionable whether these are transferable or not. Like, would Jonathan have actually been able to use that for himself? Who knows? No, Jonathan handed that to Christian because Jonathan thinks that Christian giving him his shot in the dark, that him convincing Christian to give him the shot of the dark is the reason Christian was voted out.
Yeah.
Jonathan, it was showmanship it was his way of saying, I
I
did
did
this.
this. Yeah.
And he's so wrong, which is hilarious. Like we even get the confessional from Christian saying, I can't use it anyways, so I might as well give it to Jonathan. Like I have to
Sure.
vote for myself. So
Yeah.
I can't, and you can't vote if you use your shot in the dark. The fact that Jonathan isn't even aware of that, doesn't even clue in that Christian is giving up absolutely nothing by handing this to him. Is hilarious and is why Jonathan is not going to win this game. I can only hope Jonathan, if he makes it to the end, tries to bring that up as a move, and in a final tribal, Christian just completely, just drops that bombshell of, I couldn't use
No.
it anyways, Jonathan.
Yeah.
But no, that's not honor and integrity, because there's no honor and integrity in asking for that and then voting for the person. So that he can't claim it's that. No, that's his way of saying, I played you. I'm the reason why you went home. But he's not. That is not the case. And I really hope that when Jonathan finds that out, it's in the most public and embarrassing way possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
because he was trying to publicly humiliate Christian in that moment.
that's what I thought. I think even beyond like taking credit for the move, which I thought was it too. My thought was when he got up and gave him a shot in the dark, I was like, damn, like that is cold blooded. The fact that he did that,
Mhm.
like that's really putting salt in the wound. Like, yeah, and it felt to me at the moment that he was like, yeah, and by the way, you gave this to me and I played you, and take it with
Yeah.
you. I don't even want it. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
not mine
And
to
well,
have.
and the fact that he got that so wrong, and the fact that, like, in theory, he could have had 2 shot in the darks to play with, and just to showboat, he gave it up, is, like, incredibly poor gameplay in every way you look at it.
Yeah,
Like, it's honestly it was so bad in every way, shape, and form of a game move that as a juror, I would never feel comfortable voting for that man to win based on that alone because it was just so bad. Everything about it, like his ego and his misunderstanding of the very mechanics of the game, are why he did it. And if we come to find out he could have used that and had 2 shot in the darks, like, no, like, you can't win this game.
no, I definitely think at some point I think Jonathan, I think this is probably the point, has decided that, you know what? The only thing I need to do now to win the game is just to make myself more visible, which is
Mhm.
crazy because theoretically, like, if he makes the end, he should have a strong case to win regardless by just being like, look at me. I shouldn't have made the end. And that's like
Mhm.
a totally valid argument. Like it is. But
Yeah.
but he's doing too much for sure.
Yeah.
Doing
I
too
think
much.
yeah, I think the other thing to look at in terms of who's gonna win season 50 is who are the other contestants of season 50 going to feel comfortable having as the representative, like the winner of their season?
Yeah,
And I think there are some people that just that's never going to be them. And I'm not saying that that's set in stone. I think, like I mentioned Aubrey earlier, if she is able to tell a story of her journey on Survivor and bring these misogynistic men to the end with her and that be her winning move, I think that is something that could be compelling. Suri, obviously. I think Ozzy, if he's not there with Suri, like Ozzy's someone that they'd be like, yeah, this is a great season
yeah,
50 winner. I
yeah,
think I think they're all thinking that Rizzo won't be because he's so new and he's an unknown quantity, but I actually think he has a case also because of that at the end. I think the jury, their egos would be too big to let it happen, but I think that's where he's going in terms of painting his own narrative.
yeah,
But I feel like everybody else and some of these people I love, like I think Emily Flippin, if Emily Flippin played an awesome game and got to the end because she was so beloved in her season, I think that would absolutely work. I think Tiffany would need to play a heck of a game because I don't think she had made enough of a mark before this season for there to be that story.
yeah,
So she'd either have to play a heck of a game or be in the end with people who they want to give it to less. And I guess that's always the question, is who the jury wants to give it to and who they want to give it
sure.
to less than you. But I think for season 50, they're looking at a body of work that maybe expands beyond season 50. And so that is really interesting as well. And I think any one of them could achieve that if they spin their narrative, if they know what they need to do and can attach their story to their Survivor history. But like Stephanie's someone who could achieve that, but she has no concept that she needs to do that. So
No,
she's not
no,
winning,
no.
so it's very interesting.
Well, with that in mind, I mean, I may as well ask you, since we're talking about it, who do you think is gonna win? I mean, you got all the people here. The only person not pictured is Joe, but I have a feeling you won't say him.
Yeah.
Um, but lay it on me. Who do you think at
Mm.
this point is gonna win Survivor 50?
I think if Sari gets to the end, she wins. And I want her to so badly. I think again, if there is fire at 4, I like, and Ozzy is still there, like she's in, I think. But
Yeah,
more than just that, I think if there's fire at 4 and she goes to fire, I think she has a shot because I think she's practiced fire. So I think Suri does have a shot. The trickiest time is going to be final 5, final 6 for her, I think, assuming that there is fire.
Yeah.
The moments we get, I haven't seen enough from Aubrey yet for her to win, but I think it's compelling. The moments we've gotten so far from her edit, like it feels like they're inserting things that weren't necessarily relevant to that day's story, and that's always a telltale sign. I remember when Rachel won, there was a confessional she had. It felt like it was around this point in the game, but there were fewer people because they started with fewer people, about, so it was an analogy about like steering the ship in the ocean or something. I forget exactly what the confessional was, but I remember watching that confessional and being like, that is a winner's edit confessional. I remember having that thought. And then I was really high on Rachel, like from that point on, because I was like, they are laying the groundwork for it. And that confessional from Aubrey, especially the timing of it, I was like, there's something to that. We have not seen enough for me to say I think Aubrey's going to win yet, but there was something about that confessional that I was like, okay, something's coming of this, like for sure. Either that or it was the response to people saying the women weren't getting confessionals and the editors found that late and just inserted it. It's one of the two.
Either are very possible.
Either are very possible. You know, I have a friend who's certain Rizzo's going to win. My fear is that Rizzo, the reason we're not hearing Rizzo's name is because none of them, they all think they can beat him at the end. And if all of these people still in the game think they can beat him at the end, then they're not going to vote for him to win in the jury. But I think Rizzo's playing a better game this season than he played last season.
Yeah, I agree.
So those are the 3 that I think, just looking, because I just don't, I worry for Emily and Devins. I'm obviously rooting for Emily, but I worry for them. Tiff, if she suddenly starts getting confessionals like that Aubrey one, I'd feel the exact same way about her. Yeah. Jonathan is not going to win. Stephanie is not going to win. Joe is not going to win. If they are the final 3, based on edit, I guess Jonathan. Yeah. So that's, I know I've named a bunch, but I don't have like a clear-cut winner pick. Like I think I would love Suri to be the winner of season 50. So I will say Suri.
Now that Christian's gone, Christian was my official winner pick from the start of the season. But now that he's gone, I think I would like it from a narrative purpose if Ozzy won the most. Honestly, I think that would be really cool.
That'd be cool.
I think it's going Rizzo's way though. Honestly, I really do. Because Rizzo has had a bunch of confessionals at Tribal Council and things like that where he says something along the lines of, and the thing about people that return is that they do, I guess it's my Rizzo impression, is that they do well. And, you know, there's a history of Survivor of us doing really well. And I feel like they wouldn't show that if he didn't do really well and possibly win. And I feel like he's so well ingrained. He has an idol. I think people would want to bring him to the end. And I think that he can speak eloquently at a final Tribal Council. I believe that, and I believe he can be like, I had alliances with all these people, and it wouldn't feel like betrayal.
Yeah, I just don't think they'd give it to him. I just don't think this group of people would give it to the new guy, but I could be wrong. I think he's definitely earned it. Like if he's there, I think I would feel, unless he was there with Suri and he brought her because he didn't have the guts to cut her, then I think it should be her. And I didn't mention Ozzy at all. I think it's just mostly because we just see him deferring to Suri all game. That it's not a winner's edit per se, but no, I'd be fine if Ozzy walked away with this win too. Like Ozzy and Suri, definitely the most nostalgic, sentimental picks to be a winner of season 50. Absolutely.
Well, hey, here's a similar question, kind of in the opposite sense. We have another episode coming up. Who do you think's going home?
I think it's going to be Devins or Emily.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you who, but I think it will be one of them, and I'm very sad about it.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think?
I think I'll just say I think it'll be Emily, because I think Devins still has this idol that he can float about and be like, I can use this. And I think people recognize that even if that were real, he would not use it on Emily at this point. So
Mm. Mhm.
I think it's more likely that it's Emily. I don't really see how she skates by now that Ozzy and Suri are kind of going after her, and Tiffany. I think
Yeah.
that she doesn't really have any allies left. I mean,
Except Evans, and they're not as tight. But
yeah,
yeah, like the fact that the two of them voted for they're the two that voted for Ozzy, right? So
yeah,
that's gonna be awkward back at camp. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. So I'm gonna say Emily, and we'll see how it goes. But there you go. All right.
Cool.
Any more thoughts on the episode, Lauren? Anything we didn't quite get to? Anything else you have to say whatsoever?
I think we covered it in great detail. And again, it was great being able to be in the same room with you watching it and
Yes.
to hang out and play some clock tower. It was
Yeah.
really good couple days in Toronto. But no, I think we've covered everything.
I think we have too. So the only thing that's left to say is thank you all for joining, for listening, for watching. Stay tuned. We'll do it again soon. Thank you, everybody. Bye.